Blue Origin is warning today that debris from this rocket explosion may show up in nearby water for weeks and that people should stay away from it. This powerful blast happened last night at Cape Canaveral in Florida during a ground test. This was a fireball that consumed the New Glenn rocket just before it mushroomed into the sky. Thankfully, Blue Origin founder Jeff Bezos says no one was hurt in this. We have CNN aviation correspondent Pete Muntean here with the latest. This was incredible to watch, this blast.
Yeah, and they're calling this an anomaly in space terms. Doing a lot of work with that one single term because this is a significant setback. The New Glenn is one of the largest rockets in the world, stands about 30 stories tall, designed to launch some of the biggest and most valuable payloads into orbit. Blue Origin was finally beginning to build momentum in what are called heavy launches, and the company's starting to look like a true competitor to SpaceX until now. This happened during what's known as a hot fire test. That's when the rocket's engines are ignited on the ground. You can see them there while the vehicle remains at the launch pad. Then the massive explosion. The biggest headline here is that Jeff Bezos, according to a social media post, says everyone involved is safe. It's important to note this was not the first test of the New Glenn rocket. The rocket successfully reached orbit on its first flight in January 2025. Blue Origin then completed additional launches, also successfully recovered some of the boosters, the same reusable rocket technology that helped make SpaceX pretty dominant in this space. Remember, this is not Blue Origin's tourism rocket. The New Shepard is what carried celebrities including William Shatner and Katy Perry on brief trips into space. The New Glenn is Blue Origin's first rocket missions in Earth orbit. It's the centerpiece of the company's efforts to compete directly with SpaceX, expected to launch commercial satellites, government payloads, Amazon's satellite internet constellation, a direct competitor to SpaceX's Starlink as well. One of the biggest questions now is whether the explosion damaged the launch pad itself. Rockets can be replaced, but a damaged launch complex can take months to repair. After the explosion, Elon Musk of SpaceX posted on X, "Most unfortunate, rockets are hard," to put it mildly. The focus now turns to what caused this failure and whether this could delay future launches at this launch complex at Cape Canaveral. The Federal Aviation Administration usually would lead an investigation into something like this. That's the agency that oversees private space launches. Says because this test was on the ground, it's not really in its regulatory scope. So still sort of unclear who will dig down into the bottom of this and figure out exactly what caused this huge explosion from the start.
Can you answer a little random trivia question for me? It almost looks like tiny little smokestacks that you see that are lit on either side beforehand, which almost, you see them? They're right there.
And some of those are sort of a pilot light there to help ignite the rocket itself. The big concern of damage is to the sort of towers there on the left and right. And we're just now getting new images sort of showing the scope and the daylight from the air of what the damage was like here. And so that's the big question. If this pad is significantly damaged, then this could set back not only future launches for Amazon's Blue Origin, but other companies that use these launch pads at Cape Canaveral. Still some pretty big questions out there about why this took place and really the full scope of this.
Yeah, no doubt. Hard to see how there may not be damage, but we'll be waiting for the official designation on that. Pete, thank you so much.
Anytime.
Really appreciate it.
The video of this fireball is just insane. The moment a Blue Origin rocket exploded overnight during what's called a hot fire test. This all happened at Cape Canaveral. The company, founded by Amazon's Jeff Bezos, says all staff are accounted for, all staff are safe, thankfully. But just look at this. They're still working to figure out what caused it. The company announced this week, though, that the rocket is called the New Glenn, that it had been cleared to launch once again. That's after what happened last month when there was another issue with the rocket, a second stage failure during its third flight that prompted an FAA investigation. When that happened, the rocket was unable to deliver its satellite payload to orbit properly. The FAA says this time the test isn't in its scope because it didn't impact air traffic, but NASA still plans to investigate. And just look at what happened overnight. Jeff Bezos posted on social media this: "Very rough day, but we'll rebuild whatever needs rebuilding and get back to flying. It's worth it." Joining me right now is David Susi, CNN's safety analyst and former FAA safety inspector. David, obviously so much not known, but when you see this video, what could have happened?
Well, at this point, it's too early to tell exactly what happened, but you can. What I feel is happening here is this race to the moon. Everybody's trying to push things forward. I feel like they didn't take the necessary safety precautions. He can say, "Yeah, this is a test. We're going to rebuild. We're going to do whatever we have to do." But it's you have to also think about the fact that you have to set these tests up properly. You have to test everything in the system. Obviously, that didn't happen here. You can't blow up a rocket as a test. What you have to do is check it beforehand, make sure there's no leaks, and which can happen in these hydrogen tanks. What you have is enough pressure and enough power that obviously you can see how much power is there. It has to be directed. It has to be controlled, and these controls are not something you take lightly. But this obviously had a leak, some kind of leak that got back into the system. What you also have is a one-way check valve in every single connection along the way, so that you're supposed to build them this way. And that's what NASA is going to be looking into, is did they have the proper safety precautions at every phase of movement of the fuel? When you move the fuel, special valves are made to prevent this kind of static electricity or any kind of buildup. Back as it moves, it creates energy. And that energy, as it moves through the tubes, creates that energy and creates static electricity around the outside of the tube. So it has to all be grounded properly. It all has to make sure that there's no oxygen getting into it to mix with it. And obviously something here went wrong with that process, creating too much heat in the wrong place, and it results in this kind of explosion. I think it's just a bit of carelessness, to be honest with you.
And David, I mean, you mentioned the race to the moon. These private companies are critical, have become critical to NASA's space plans and future hopes of returning humans to the moon and going beyond. And you wonder, well, clearly Jeff Bezos says, they will rebuild and they will continue the work. When you see, I mean, what a disaster this just erupted in Cape Canaveral, I wonder how this sets that back.
It will set it back for years and years and years. And if NASA investigates and finds that there was something that they did that was careless, then they will not be able to get a contract with NASA. It's just the way it works. It could take 5 to 10 years before this project would be available to NASA. NASA is super critical about this. So is the FAA. Once it's in the airspace, which it has to go through that airspace, and the FAA does control the airspace as well as the spaceports. So the FAA is going to be involved with this all the way along the route. But this was not within their purview because it wasn't an intended flight. It wasn't supposed to be in the airspace. It was just a test of the engines. So, but it indicates to me, and the FAA is saying, no, we're hands off. We don't have anything to do with it yet. But they will. This will be part of their investigation once they get airborne. Look back to see what NASA said and what came out of it, and how that's going to prove. They have to prove to 10 to the minus ninth safety factor, which is trillions of points, to say it will not fail. It will not fail because of this and this and this. Though the math behind what it is that makes it safe for commercial flight is millions fold, and they'll have to get back that trust.
Yeah. David, thank you so much for jumping on and helping us understand as we continue to try to get more answers of what really went down. Thank you, David.